Welcome to Business Prowess with Raphael and Dr. Andrea. Our show will bring you the best insights, ideas, and inspiration from successful entrepreneurs and CEOs in the business world. Don't miss out on the opportunity to learn from the best and stay ahead of the game. Sifu Raphael is the founder of 5 unique shows. He's a fitness professional, solutions expert, executive coach, and head instructor at Max Martial Arts and Fitness in New York. Dr. Andrea Adams Miller is an award-winning international keynote speaker, best-selling author, and CEO of the Red Carpet Connection Publicity, Publishing, and Talent Agency, and CEO of IgniteYourRelationship.com. Known as the Dream Maker, she makes visionaries' dreams come true, bigger than they ever dare to desire.
Dr. Andrea, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Hunky-dory.
I like hunky-dory. That's pretty cool. So you're excited? I'm sure we're both excited. We have an amazing guest coming on. So why don't we go ahead and bring him on?
Thank you. Yes.
Kofi, good morning.
Hello,
How are you doing on
hello.
this
Good
Friday?
morning. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday for sure. So we're excited to have you. Would you mind telling us a little bit about you, and this way people can get to know you a little bit? Because I can come in and introduce you, I can read your bio, but I think when we hear it from you, from the source, you add that je ne sais quoi, right?
Sure, definitely. So again, yeah, I'm Kofi Annan, not the UN Secretary General, but G. Kofi Annan. I'm a brand strategist and technologist, and don't worry if you don't know what those terms mean. But essentially, I work with different brands and companies to help them increase their visibility in certain markets, also increase the engagement. So however people are engaging with either the brand directly or indirectly, and then also increase their profit, right? Because at the end of the day, a business needs to be profitable in order for it to succeed. And the ways that I do that is by leveraging technologies like AI. That's all the hype now, but in the past, different kinds of technologies and insights, specifically around customers, audiences, and communities. I think those are the key to propelling a brand forward.
Wow, powerful. You know, and today's topic is what's in a brand. And you talked about before AI, and you talked other ways of getting a brand out there, but I believe AI has been around forever,
It
hasn't it?
has.
Very long time.
It has actually, and I remember probably about 6 years ago, I was working with a large global pharmaceutical company, Bayer specifically, on one of their multiple sclerosis injectable. And one of the big problems that they had at the time was that if everyone knows people with MS, the kind of tactile and kind of staying steady to inject, it's really a problem. And even then, nascent AI, but one of the ways that we were able to leverage technology is to create essentially a chatbot, a voice chatbot, which we use to learn based on the calls people usually call. Am I injecting the right way? Do I have something? Instead of having them be on the phone and trying to inject, we're able to give them access to a voice-enabled chatbot through the magic of AI at the time,
Right.
so that they could actually be able to talk through their injection and their treatment regimen. And that was, it took us months, years, thousands and millions of dollars to create that solution at a time, which reduced their inbound calls. And fast forward to today, like those technologies are so much more advanced and so much more accessible. And that's what's beautiful about that accessibility, particularly for growing brands.
Definitely. So what is in a brand? Is it a computer? Is it a person? Is it a company? Is it society? Is it a community? What's in a brand?
Yeah, so the definition, most lay people, regular people think of a brand as the colors, the logo, what's on the box, right? But I define it, and my role specifically, and where people like myself play, is that a brand is a promise that a business makes to a customer, audience, or community, and how they deliver on that. right? So you think of something as simple as, and it's the Amazon, for instance, right? Everyone knows Amazon. Everybody trusts Amazon. Why, right? Amazon started off at books, and they built that. That was their core product, right? So if you're product focused, you might think that it's all about my product. Yeah, sure. But Amazon has evolved since then. But what does Amazon stand for now? It stands for convenience. It kind of stands for reliability, right? And all those things that we all know, when that's why we trust Amazon as a brand, no matter what kind of product it comes in. And on those boxes, Amazon boxes, that trust, that reliability, that consistency is that little smile that they have, right?
That's right.
So it all ties together, and it's that promise that they have to their customers that they continue to deliver on time and time again. And that's what the brand is.
It's interesting when you bring up Amazon, because a lot of people think it's based on products, but most of their money is made on technology, and it's that credibility that you talked about, the always there,
Mhm.
the reliability of their technology, and how you're right, they went from selling books to selling technology. And this is why Jeff Bezos has been able to go on this weird looking spaceship rocket. Uh, and then even when his wife, now ex-wife, when she donated $4 billion, that's because of the amount of money that he was able to generate.
Mhm.
Her generosity was incredible. But if
Yeah.
it wasn't for him being able to create this brand, this idea of community, of trust, then that money would never have been available for her to donate.
Yeah, and that's the I love how you phrase that, because it is the impact that you're having on your customers, and in the short term, how people are interacting with you, all those kinds of things that a lot of small businesses and growing businesses really focus on and narrow down to. But yeah, it is that long-term effect too, right? What are you able to impact in people's lives with your company, in your life, and the people that are in your company, but then even in the different markets that you're in. And a lot of smaller companies, and even Jeff Bezos, probably, if you ask him at that time, he wanted to get to that point, right? Books was an entryway into that, but really creating that customer experience, creating that reliability to then also be generous to other people was probably in the long term. And that's where I always tell a lot of my clients, like, you have to think short term, yes, but also think on the long game as well. Like, what is the brand? And brands have equity. You can actually sell just the name, the name and the logo for something if you've built that trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Andre, you have a brand, and your brand, tell us about it and what made you even create that brand. And here we go. Hello from China, little sister. That's
When it comes to the whole idea of the brand, one of the things that's been an interesting distinction over time is, that's why at the beginning, Kofi had called me Andrea, and I said, "Oh, I go by Dr. Andrea." And it's interesting because some people, when they meet me or they ask me that, they think that it's because of like an ego thing, like I have to have doctor to my name. It's actually not. It's because when there are lots of Andreas in the world, but there's Dr. Andrea. So like if I'm like, the reason when I decided to finally start using doctor, I had a doctorate for almost 15, 17 years before I even used the word doctor. But I realized that designated me differently in the room. So when people are talking about me, and then, so my personal brand, as far as Dr. Andrea, and I always go by Adams Miller together, hyphenated. Because if you look up Andrea Adams or Andrea Miller, there's thousands of them. Dr. Andrea Adams Miller separates me from other people, just like Kofi was explaining that with the G period separates him from the Secretary of State guy or whoever that guy is, so that you are by yourself. And then when my clients, with my different businesses, named me the Red Carpet Connection, they said, it's, Andrea, every time we see you, you're always on a red carpet. You're always with a lot of people, because that at the time was how I was seen most. And now I wear red, so I am the red carpet connection. So I also personally became part of my brand. So you're right. At some point, the red carpet connection could be sold. And even though it's been Dr. Andrea Adams Miller that's attached to it, anybody else could step into the red carpet connection. And if they also just wear red, they could probably step right into my brand and take it over, especially if we created a transition where I'm handing the reins over to that person in leadership so that they show up and they are now the leader of the red carpet connection. So those things, come into play when you're thinking about branding. So I love that you brought all these things up, Kofi, because people don't realize that. And sometimes if you're only just yourself, how do I sell Dr. Andrea Adams Miller as a business and walk away from it? That you can, but it's not as easy.
You can easily have ambassadors to the red carpet connection. So you can have a bunch of women wearing red and build that empire.
Well, I can have a lot of men wearing red. I work with more men than women, so.
So the red carpet, there you go. The red carpet connection could be men all wearing red.
My avatar is men. Although I do work with women as well, I mostly work with men.
But Dr. Andrea, it's a great description that you use there, right? How you went from where you were just, Andrea Adams Miller, and really being thoughtful about how to create that brand and things that are innately your personality, and it comes out in different ways, but attach it to that brand so that it provides that equity. And that's what I talk to with a lot of my clients, right? Some of my clients are tech founders or tech scale-ups or startups. And, I always get into this conversation, particularly with people who are tech focused. So they're very, product, and, the product speak for itself, or even creatives, right? My work should speak for itself. And I say, yes, it's true. Your work is wonderful. I assume it is going to change the world. But if you really want to have that impact, you do have to think about how you're bringing it forward. How are people being introduced to it? What is the experience that they're having during the using the product and even after it? And really, and you really need to pull that all together, and that is your brand. So if you have a strong product that delivers in the market, it delivers on people's needs, and then you also have that brand that people could now start saying, it's a smile. However you articulate it, they could both be loyal to your brand, but again, it increases the exposure, it amplifies your brand and your product as well. So you don't have to do as much work.
I like that you mentioned that, because when we relate it to, so I'm an international publicist, but within the red carpet connection, I do neuroscience and other things. We have different arms within that business. And one of them is having a publishing company. And we've always talked about that with books. And people often will say that too. Well, I just want my book to sell itself. Well, like, your book is a baby. Do babies have to sell themselves? You say, parents say, look at my baby. They show off their baby. They don't hide it and say, don't look at my baby, it's going to sell itself. You got
you're not doing anybody any favors. You're definitely not doing the baby any favors, right? The baby has to be out in the world.
They have to know that you even have a baby. Otherwise, they're not even going to ask to see your baby. And that's what it is with books too. And with your business, you have to be the ambassador of the business, of the product. You have to teach the people that work with you. I also see that as well. Some companies don't give their employees any kind of connection or power or ownership of the brand. And so then they go, oh, you have to go to work, or what, instead of saying, oh, I'm excited I get to go to work today, and being proud, and then mentioning to people your business.
Your
everybody
frontline workers.
And it's your word of mouth. I mean, it's funny. I'm paid to be a publicist, but word of mouth is more important.
It is.
Yeah, one of the things you talked about, a book and an author, and they want their book noticed. But I think one of the things that before people even open a book, a lot of people read the back of the book to see if it's even worth opening it. And so the same thing with a baby, you can have a baby in your arms and nobody will ever notice. until that baby starts to cry. So that's the back of the book. The baby's the crying or the cooing, right? That's what's going to let people know, oh, you have a baby in your arm. Oh, wow.
I love
And the
that.
same thing
Cooing.
with a
My book
book.
is cooing. I like that.
And so
Trademark.
the book is cooing too, but also the cover of the book. That's what draws attention. That's what draws people in. You know, when you consider all things, think about some people are the brand. When you think of Musk, there are 3 companies that are attached to this man. You have Tesla, now you have X, and you have, which is the other one?
SpaceX.
There you go. See, I knew you knew it. So, but consider the fact that he took a brand that everybody knew it was a little bird, and he changed it. He got rid of it, and everybody said, "You're the dumbest person on earth for doing that." And people left the platform and this and that and the other, but he's changed it, and he was able to do that because of who he is. Whether you like him or not, the man is brilliant.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter
And
if you like him, hate him, love him. He's still brilliant. There's still people out there driving his car, loving his car, but they put a sticker on the back of their car, love the car, hate the man, right? So they're
I haven't
still
seen that
giving
yet.
him credit. They're still giving him credit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's a key point too. And I think what in the media, especially, people think that, let's take Elon Musk, for instance, that, yeah, he's a genius in recognizing opportunities and leveraging it and bringing it forward, those are things so folks a lot of times, they say even Apple, right, that Steve Jobs knew where the future was going and he took it there, X, Y, and Z. What I also caution a lot of my clients around is thinking of it as just the focus of the individual, right? You do have to be focused on your product and what your passion is and what you're using to bring it forward. But especially in this day and age as well, you also have to be willing to receive feedback. You have to be listening to your customers, listening to the markets as they're changing, understanding the behaviors so that you can adapt. So Elon, for instance, yes, a lot of backlash for changing Twitter to X because the loyalists are like, no, I don't want to do that. But I just saw on Twitter X the other day where someone was credited him because now the company is more than just a platform for people to shout from the mountaintops, right? And I think that was in to his credit, that was him listening to the market, watching what other things are doing it, and then of course doing it uniquely to him and his ethos and how he's doing it, but understanding that people don't just want to stop somewhere and just kind of shout from the mountaintops. They want to do other things within that context, and he needed to bring that forth to elevate both the product and the brand. So you do have to listen to your customers.
So I
For
have to admit
example,
something
go
that
ahead.
will be interesting. So I never was a Twitter person because I found Twitter extremely difficult because it would be a couple words and then gobbledygook of letters that I'd have to go to. I don't want to go to another thing. And I like pictures associated with words. So I'm much more of a Facebook person. And now I really enjoy TikTok. I like that, that how the information comes to me better. Never was a Twitter person. So today when I came into here, I wanted to make sure that all my Facebook things were up and, my LinkedIn for us to showcase, this particular programming. And then I'm like, what's that? The X. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the Twitter. Cause there's still people in the world who like, even me who like knows, I just don't like Twitter. So I just ignore it. And so I'd forgotten all about the X. I didn't care about that whole story. I didn't pay attention to it. Cause to me, not interested in it.
Yeah.
It's not my thing. And so I want people, I'm using that as an example for hopefully people who are seeing this. You think that your brand is known and loved by everybody. Elon thinks that everybody knows what X is. And here's me. And I'm going, what's that?
Yeah. Well, for example, since he changed Twitter and it's no longer Twitter, it's X, guess what we can do? We're live streaming this particular show on X. Right now, we have people watching on X. So guess what? he developed the platform, made it bigger, more opportunities. He presented that for other people. One of the things I want to ask you, Kofi, you have the Brand Sensei. Does that mean that you're disciplined with your brand?
100,000%. And thanks for recognizing that. As Sifu, I'm sure as a practitioner of arts and coaching. Yes, 100%. So I've been working with brands and businesses, helping them grow for over 20 years. And I've worked with companies, as I mentioned, like Bayer, like PUMA, like Mercedes Benz, large companies like that, and also again growing startups that from South Korea was one of my clients, a textile manufacturer for South Korea. I have a waste management client that I'm working with now, which is a startup, well funded, over $10 million in revenue. So through my experiences through all these different industries and all these different size and of clients and engagements, I've seen some patterns around how companies could build a brand, move faster, and be smarter about it, and not waste a lot of time, money, and resources. So that's really kind of where the Brand Sensei, where we really focus on four key areas that are, if you focus on those, you'll knock it out of the box, and you could grow with it. The first is the essence. So what are you about? Why you and your person? We have more than enough choice today for any kind of thing, from water to different kinds of water. So why should any community choose you? So what's the essence of your magic sauce? Then what is your expression? Like, how you bring it out? What are the stories, the visuals? Again, this is the stuff that people attach to branding. What are those expressions, those stories that you could tell people and people could tell? And then the experiences. Dr. Andrea, you mentioned about Twitter and X and kind of like how that experience is like really too cluttered for you and you prefer Facebook. So what is that experience like, and how is it authentic to that particular customer community? And then finally, the effect. What is the impact that you're making, both internally for your company and then externally for the market and the community? And I think those four areas, the essence, the expressions, the experience, and the effect, if any company focuses on those four areas, they're definitely will be able to build a brand that gathers momentum and people love. So yes, we are very systematic about how we approach our work with our clients.
So you mean it's not just colors? I'm just kidding.
Just color. And it isn't. The short is it isn't, and I think one of the things too, where I think folks a lot of with the advent of AI and bringing it back to that, because it is an inflection point for a lot of businesses. A lot of people think that AI, because it accelerates a lot of things, you could kind of just put your colors. AI could tell you the colors, it could tell you the logo. You could do it like, okay, great, my brand is done. But there's a saying in data science and data analysis, which I'm, again, with that effects part, I'm really strong proponent of, which is garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't have a strong process, you don't know who your brand, who you stand for, you don't know who you're serving. Sure, AI will just amplify any of that, and you'll have ugly color. You might have beautiful colors and beautiful logo, but a horrible customer service. No customers. Dr. Andrea, to your point, people not even wanting to work with you, employees not wanting to work with you, no talent want to work with you because your brand kind of is a mess. So it is a lot more than AI can just manufacture.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, let's shift a little bit and say what truly is in the brand. If it's a recipe, if we're cooking something, if we're making a meal out of it, what's the ingredients that should go into a brand? If we're asking what is a brand?
You have to start with who you are. And it's those four areas that I mentioned. Start with who you are. Again, where any company that currently exists or is entering into coming out in the world, you have to differentiate yourself. You have to position yourself. And it's not always about what the market is looking to bear, but it's what you're trying to do. Like, what are you trying to bring forward? And there are the number of ways that you could go about that. You know, some people can't really articulate it. And I always tell my clients the easiest way to figure out, you know, what are you for and what are you trying to do? It's not these high level questions. Take out a tape recorder, phone, record yourself, have a someone close to you sit next to you and just talk about what you're trying to do. All the ums and ahs and the stumbling and everything, record all of that.
Oh yeah.
With multiple type of people that someone that's in your family, someone that's a customer, X, Y, and Z, record all of that. And then these days you can have AI transcribe and derive the insights from that. So you're able to succinctly represent, okay, this is what I'm supposed to, what I'm doing. And I can now articulate that to, you know, my team, my customers, my investors. And so I think that's always where it starts. Same thing on the reverse. If you've lost your way in the market, or you've kind of been doing some work and it's not working, you're not getting customers, everything, go back to what are you trying to do? Start talking to people, listening to people, record that conversation between yourself and the customer. What are the customers saying? You know, and a lot of times they'll tell you. And if they're not going to tell you to their face, they're saying it on forums and on X, Twitter, Facebook, and such, and you could get that information from there as well. But it's about talking and listening, and it sounds boring, and it's like like, oh no, I don't want to do that. I want to change the world, but that's how you change the world. You you talk and you listen.
You know, it's interesting that you brought this up, because the last couple months, so I have a nonprofit called the keepsmilingmovement.org, and sometimes people are unsure of what we're doing or what the purpose of it. And really it's more about neuroplasticity. So when you smile, you change the effects of the brain. And the more you change the effects of the brain, it allows it to be in a better state, so that it releases, we call it a dose of hope, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, which gives a person a sense of hope, which allows them to act out in resilience. So they're able to act in a different way, because now that they have this hope, and we call hope an acronym as well, it's hold on, peace exists, you know. So whatever they're going through, there's hope at the end, you know. And then if you have hope, then you act in a better way. So right now our logo and so forth is you know, a little smiley little round gold guy with little blue hands and stuff. And I've been thinking about that, because I think sometimes people think it's just we're doing something cute, and we're way more than cute. So I've been looking at what would be most effective, because I don't want to change smiles just one person at a time. I want to change the capacity for people to smile one population at a time. There's a happiness index. So I have a much bigger scope and reach and desire for what I want for this brand. And so I've been really thinking about, like, how can we reinvent ourselves to be much better? So I'm appreciating this. I had actually even thought about changing the name, and I talked with an attorney, and he said, no, because just stay with what you've got, because you've already got all your stuff set up. You've been in this since 2019. You're just gonna have to do over. So.
Yeah, and sometimes that's a transition that a lot of growing companies go through a lot, you know. And sometimes when I engage with clients, they're in that transition where, you know, they started off somewhere, it's not working. They either want to evolve, or maybe even a recent client of mine was a South Korean textile software as a service platform. And they essentially connected the textile industry in South Korea with, you know, manufacturers and particularly fashion clients. And they were doing really well in the Asian market, and they wanted to enter the US market. And they had a wonderful product, but they started hitting they couldn't get the traction. And when we started working together, I told them, again, let's listen to what the people in the US, the same kinds of people with the same roles, are saying about what they're looking for and how they want to interact with those companies. So we did gather some insights. We did some online listening, talked to specific people, went to fashion shows. Those are fabulous. It's all research.
Yes, it is.
Just to understand the customers and the people these new people that we're trying to reach within the context, the language that they're using, right? The terminology that they're using, which, and it's not even talking about language like English versus another language, but the terms that they're using, so that my client, and once we gathered that, we knew that we went back to our the drawing board and say, okay, yes, we're talking about the same service, but this is how we talk about it. We have to talk about it. We have to do more storytelling, because these kinds of clients, these kinds of customers are, they don't just buy things. They want to feel emotionally connected to something, because they're designers and they're creatives, and they're like, really, it's like my passion, like those kinds of things, right? So it's finding that balance between where you are and how you talk, Dr. Andrea, about what you're doing now, and then what is the vision going forward, and what are the things that need to be changed. Do you need to change the name? In the case of my client, we didn't change the name because there's equity in that, but we changed how we talked about it to this new audience, in this new context. So there are nuances, and again, that's kind of where I work with different brands, that's both startups and large brands, because there are nuances to that, and we can definitely do that smarter and not spend a lot of time just kind of talking to each other and having focus groups forever.
Yeah. And I appreciate that, because we're ultimately what we want to do is have people be enrolled, and not only being ambassadors, but enrolled in donating, so that we can create things. And we are a mental and dental health organization, because how you're more likely to smile if you have good dental health, and your overall mental and physical health changes if your mouth is in better health. But we're really a brain health organization. And so it's funny, so we're making this leap, because yes, we call it mental health, but it's really how your brain works. If your brain is not working well, then your mental health is probably not working well. And so it's yeah. And I do notice the way I talk about it, people show up to me differently than like some of our other ambassadors, and it's just how they're connected to it, and that's okay.
I want to take a second to let everybody know that if you're enjoying this show, and if you ever want to be on the show with Dr. Andrea and myself, and Kofi, thank you so much for being here with us. Definitely reach out to us, and we'll have a quick interview, and we'll see if you're the right fit. So Kofi, you are definitely the right fit. And what a great conversation we're having today. I want to talk to you guys about, and you brought it up, it's what you stand for, what you're doing. So right now, I'm looking to hire or work with 50 to 100 people, and I'm doing interviews with that many people. But in order for me to get the right 50 to 100, I probably have to interview 5 to 1,000 people. So at this point, because I'm building this huge organization, it's about me being clear as to what my brand is, what my message is. And so we are building, and we're having an inaugural event happening April 19th and 20th here in New York, where we're doing the grand opening, if you will, of a physical location, but we're also doing a virtual location, and it's on communication. It's a communication school, but we're also maybe doing it in other countries, because I'm already in talks with other people in order to put these things in place. And when I had an interview with someone the other day, and they said to me, "Do you have a recording of this?" I said, "I'm recording it right now. I'll send it to you." Because I was being transparent with what we're doing. And I wanted to let them know that I'm not holding anything back, and that I want them on the team, but these are the requirements for them to be on the team. So that when we are branding, because it's called speaking prowess, so it's about the power of speaking, and so it's communication, and letting them know that in order for them to be part of it, there's the brand, and they have to go along with the brand. And if it makes sense to them, then it makes sense for them to work with us, right? Is that something that we should all do when we're trying to create a new venture, a new opportunity even for people?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what you need to do. You have the brand, you have the the roadmap, right?
Correct.
And you're using the tools to be effective and efficient. And really, that's what it needs to be. And there's the transparency part there too, right? When you're using technology, as you mentioned, especially with AI, but even when we're talking about metaverse, and I've seen all the different hype cycles, all the different technologies that were going to change our lives and whatever. One of the key things, particularly if you're dealing with, at the end of the day, we're serving people, is that transparency. How ethical, how clear are you being, both in your communication, but then how transparent are you being in what you're trying to build now, what you're doing now? And then at the end of the day, particularly in your case that you're talking about now, where you're trying to bring people into the fold, that's when they say, okay, well, I want to be a part of that. Not just what he's saying, how he's doing it, but then also how he's opening up and giving us access. And that is the biggest thing for growing businesses and how they could differentiate these days. Google, Amazon, Ford, all these guys, they have more than enough money. They could buy up, whole cities if they want. But the emerging and growing brands, the secret sauce, the competitive edge that we have is that authenticity, that being able to bring people into the fold. But again, you have to be able to communicate that well. You have to use the right tools to make sure you're efficient and effective. And then you have to open it up to people and let people and let that community come in. So yes, 100%. That's exactly what, where I see a lot of brands gaining momentum and skyrocketing their efforts. So kudos to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. One of the things I realized, and you said it several times, listening. When the company from Korea was coming to the US, they could not serve the same way because culture is one, right? What people want is two. And then what happens is when we consider the most important aspect is listening to what they want. So how can I serve you if I didn't listen to you? If I give you what I want, you might not like chocolate ice cream or strawberry ice cream. You may like vanilla, and the other ones are like, oh, I don't want that. Meanwhile, I'm trying to stuff it down your throat and it doesn't work. The other thing, if you think about, and you talk Google, those are the powerful companies, Google, Amazon, and a few others. But even Google, yes, they are listening, right? And they're listening.
Listen to us now.
If you say something, right, and you have an iPhone or anything, and then you go on the web, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I didn't want this. Why am I getting all these images, all these things? No matter where I go shopping, there it is. Meanwhile, I didn't even type it in my computer, but I did say it in conversation. So they are listening, but they're also listening to the actions that are happening. Because most of the times, if you go to your phone and you go, Google, find me information on, how to make a cake. And in the past, it used to send you to a website and it would give you written information. But Google realized, even though they own YouTube, they realized that TikTok has become a huge competitor of theirs, right? It's really growing. And if you're not on TikTok, guess what? It's not for teenagers anymore, right?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. So what happens is now Google said, wait a minute, how do we compete with them? So now when you ask Google, they're slowly putting it in. So they're using their AI in order to say, we're not just going to give you a static website that's going to give you the recipe. We're going to include videos because they own the biggest platform. So we're going to include YouTube videos. We're going to include shorts in that search that you're doing, whether you spoke to it or you typed it up. That's, I think, where Google is truly listening. And if we can follow that, we can follow what people want. For example, I'm going to have my courses being taught in France, in Spanish, in German, in different languages. But if I went there and said, hey, we're teaching our course in English and too bad for you guys.
Yeah, good luck with that.
They're gonna go, well, we don't understand that language and we don't want it. But now I'm talking to professors in those countries, and they're going to interpret the courses in those languages. But they're the ones doing it. It's not me, it's them. And so that's where we have to listen, like you said.
Yeah.
So
And
Kofi, are you thinking like me that, all the things that Sifu could do with AI and his voice?
I
What
know,
about
I know, right? You could be represented.
actually, there's a program, somebody just sent it
Yeah,
to me. In my
yeah,
voice, I can speak every language I want.
yeah,
And it
yeah.
looks, and I have a friend of mine who just sent me a video of him speaking all these different languages, and it looked like it was him. It was with his voice.
Uh, yeah.
It was
Well,
incredible.
and that's the and I totally agree. As much as I leverage technology, I use technology tools with the processes to to have that the impact that I need. I recognize that most regular people, people running a business, whether you be a waste management or electrician and stuff, it becomes scary and it becomes overwhelming, right? So most people recognize the opportunity, but they're scared of, they don't know what to do with it, right? They don't know how to use it ethically, both for themselves, but then also for their customers. And a lot of times I've seen this happen with technology. It becomes a hype. Oh, you have to use it. You have to be on TikTok. You have to be on this. And then people get scared of it, or they run into problems and they say, oh no, it sucks, I can never use that, and everything like that. So there's a kind of push and pull with when you're leveraging technology, particularly in a business context, and you could try out different things. And I always say with AI, especially, you really want to start with optimizing internally first, right? So you don't really want to, well, some people like you see who want to go might want to go externally first, because but again, most people are risk averse. So I would say a good way to start is to optimize. What are the different the processes that you in your businesses, how you're communicating and stuff like that? How can you optimize that, make that more efficient and effective? Then you could amplify. Okay, now you're going outside, and that's when you start maybe creating some content. Again, kind of still low stakes but high impact. It's creating some content, making pulling in some customer reviews, those kinds of things. That's amplifying. So you've optimized internally, you've amplified out externally. And then when you really hit your stride and you really see where AI fits for you and how it could serve you and your business and your community, then you could transform, right? So now you're looking at your core business, the core way that you present yourself out in the world, maybe different features and functionality of your product and your services. So you're now transforming both yourself and hopefully the market, right? Because most founders and owners want to have that impact in the market. So start by optimizing, amplify externally a little bit, with the creative and stuff, and then you could kind of move to the transform. AI is going to be here. I've seen it here. I've seen it in different iterations for the past 5-6 years. It's going to be here. There's no reason to jump in with both feet unless you're in that kind of business and it serves you and you're that kind of person. But don't feel the anxiety is what I tell the customers. Talk to people who know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think being well informed also is important aspect for when we consider AI, because can you imagine Google reviews if they were all done by AI,
Yeah.
if they were generated by AI? So I
Well,
think
they all are.
have
Well,
to be
Amazon
careful.
reviews, people have said that they've been generated by manually, right? People, that's been one of the cases with Amazon reviews, that they're fake reviews, and now
Right,
you could have fake reviews at scale. So yes,
right.
that's the thing.
That's a
But
scary thing.
I was having this conversation before about this as well, and I always align this with even email. When email, and if those of us who've been around for a while understand, where you get your first email address and you start like, oh, I could send things to people X, Y, and Z, and then you started getting spam. Because now it was accessible and the tools were, so people started spamming like, oh my gosh, like I can't even and then the market corrected itself, or at least smart people and who wanted to make sure that it was useful corrected itself, and they came up with spam filters. People like Google, who are invested in making sure that you're getting the right message at the right time from the right person, they invested in these tools to blunt that. So I think that's exactly what's going to happen with AI as well. It's going to be a free for all now. It's going to be pretty messy, especially this year. And the smart people, I don't put it past them. They're going to think of ways to make it less scary and more useful. And ultimately, that's all it is. It's a tool that needs to be useful.
Thank you for
Yeah,
today. I
I
mean,
love
wow. Powerful. So what is in a brand? That was our topic today. Kofi, you are, my friend, an exceptional human being. Thank you for taking the time. Dr. Andrea, it's always a pleasure to share the stage with you. And stay tuned. Next week, we have exceptional people coming on. I may not be here next week as I will be attending my sister's funeral. But let me tell you, if all things in life come to a point where we have to assess what we're doing with our lives, we shouldn't wait. And when somebody passes, like my sister, we should not wait because we don't know what tomorrow can bring. So, Dr. Andrea, you may be heading this by yourself next week, as I may not be available. When we consider AI, when we consider us, AI is in us. We are AI. We create. We can change things. Let's change our lives by being proactive and mindful of the words we use and the actions we take. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Let's keep the communication going, right?
Yeah. All right.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.